stepping too far. You hurt my soul, feeling like yeah, I like your eyes and your smile while you're doubting me. Always on your mind, yeah, she never answers down on me. Always checking up and making sure I'm fine. Flying through the night, I'm Peter Pan in your eyes and reply with a smirk or a lie. Just decide what we're doing for the night or the rest of my life, yeah. Always questioning the ways that I'm doing things and losing track of what's important. Endorsing bad habits and standing mad adamant. Crying to my sad tracks but laughing when it's happening. I'm just losing my mind, yeah. So I just wanna feel the way that you feel. Losing my mind, questioning if it's real. Peeling me open, got me losing my focus. But that's okay, cause I'm on track for the start, yeah.
You talk too much, now you fucked up. I don't ever think you thought that your luck's up. Yeah, you had fun fucking with my mind, love. At the same time, I know it was on them. It wasn't the time waste. The premise it is, you blame.
No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. Don't give a fuck. My hand is born, I got what you need, baby. Listen to me speak it. No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for. No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for. No, I don't want, just said it was. I'm loving, but I see it for.
We just relax in a side pitch. Always up for dinner, she ain't know what she's having. Resting, always knowing that she ain't damn average. And seeing her twinkle when I'm calling her a bad bitch. Yeah, microphone throwing habits. Stressing over nothing, yeah, she knows that I have it. Resting under stars, talking about ghosts and cars and the way that it works. And she thinks that it's scary. I'm looking in the air and she's staring, thinking how we'll be when we're parents. Will I be riding in McLaren? I'm fearing what's next, cause it's unknown. Hoping that she's safe and always comes home. And I'm hoping that I'm there when you're scared.
workers' blood shall run. There can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever we are.
I might have to leave early. I might have to leave early because I have like a class, but I'm gonna be here for like the first hour.
It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes.
When the darkness gives to daylight and the loneliness and the pain is more than you can take, that's when you know you're alive. And it wants to break your spirit and it turns you inside out. It's the ecstasy of agony, and that's what life is all about. All in this together, we can make it through. And down at the bottom, too many times, now I'm holding on to you. All in this together, through the wind and through the rain. You bring me hope when I am hopeless, and joy when I'm in pain.
We backed into the corner. We gotta swim or sink. Oh, take it or leave it. That's when.
Hey, Natasha, your sound doesn't seem to be on. Are you muted? Here we go. Unmute.
There
Try
we
now.
go.
All
Yep.
right.
Aye, so I guess I get to start over. I get to do it twice already. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to NYPIRG Spring Student Empowerment Conference. Thanks so much for coming. We just want to welcome those who are also watching through our live stream on NYPIRG's YouTube channel. This is the first of two panels today. My name is Natasha Elder, and I am NYPIRG's New York City Equity and Resiliency Project Regional Director. I am also a CUNY alum. I graduated from Medgar Evers College with my bachelor's in social work in 2017, and in 2021, I graduated my master's from Hunter, whoop, whoop, Hunter. Before we start, I want to take a moment to explain how today's conference is going to run. Please take a look at your agenda with me now. If you don't have it, the link is also has been sent out to everyone. So after the panel discussion instruction, we will be breaking out into different issue-focused breakout sessions for you to choose from. The info to join one of those rooms will pop up immediately after our conversation. Please select one of those, the ones that you would like to join, of course, in conclusion, after we conclude. If for any reason you have any trouble throughout the day, feel free to log back into the main room and one of us will be sure to help you. Lastly, a note on event security, you'll probably notice that everyone is on mute, including myself. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat box and we'll be able to answer them in real time. We've also disabled screen sharing for participants. If there's any serious disruption that we can't address, we'll be bringing the event to a hard stop. If the meeting ends suddenly, we really, really do apologize and we'll try to rectify it, but that's the reason. So the first panel will be a discussion on mental health issues that college students face 2 years after the first pandemic-related shutdowns. We're finally getting some relief for our New York City folks. And the psychological impacts of 2 years of isolation, relocation, and economic hardship have taken their toll on everyone. Even before the pandemic began, college students were facing a huge mental health crisis. Pre-pandemic studies found that 30% of adults between the ages of 18 and 25 reported a mental health illness, while 50% higher than the general population. So it's a huge concern. Mental health issues have only worsened for college students, just with all the different issues that are surfacing since the beginning of the pandemic, and the amount of college students reporting mental health issues, including severe anxiety and depression, has increased by almost 50%. So that's why it's super important for students to come together today to hear about how colleges are meeting the challenge to provide adequate mental health services and to provide more support. So now I'd like to introduce today our panelists who have all come with their own unique viewpoints on the issue. And so first I'm going to introduce our CUNY Vice Chancellor, Dr. Denise Maybank. Dr. Denise Maybank was appointed Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management for CUNY in December 2021. A role in which she served as on an interim basis since December of 2020. In this role, she assumed responsibility for unifying the student affairs and enrollment management functions of the university's central office to guide the work for supporting students' engagement from recruitment through to completion and beyond. She holds a doctorate in counseling psychology from Michigan State University and a Master of Arts in Educational Administration from Teachers College, Columbia University, sorry. Dr. Maybank is a proud CUNY alum, having earned her Bachelor's of Arts in Elementary Education from Brooklyn College. Brooklyn's my stomping grounds, by the way. Next, we're going to have our Director of Mental Health and Wellness, CUNY Central Office of Student Affairs, Ryan Kamier. Tell me?
Kamier.
Thank you. Thank you for correcting me because I hate to get people's names wrong. Mr. Kamier is the University Director of Mental Health and Wellness at the CUNY Central Office of Student Affairs. He works at CUNY. His work at CUNY involves administration and oversight of mental health counseling, clinical health services, and wellness services for the university. He also works as a consultant for the New York State Office of Mental Health, completing regulatory compliance and quality improvement for state-operated psychiatric facilities. He is a doctoral student at the CUNY Graduate Center, working toward a PhD in social welfare. He has also completed a Master of Social Work from NYU and a Bachelor of Arts of Science, Technology, and Society from Vassar College. And lastly, but definitely not least, we have our Newport Student Government President, Jordan Hennix. Jordan is a student of SUNY Newport and the president of the Student Association on campus. He is set to graduate in May of 2021. Good luck, Jordan. I understand the struggle. So, without further ado, we're going to move forward to our main program with questions. We're going to do round robin, where all panelists answer the questions with an alternating order, and who answers the question first. So I am going to go to Dr. Maybank. Hello, Dr. Maybank.
Hello, Natasha. Good to meet you. Good to hear your CUNY connections. So I'm so proud right now to know that you did.
Positive vibes and positive energy for the CUNY squad.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming. So what mental health struggles are you seeing among students? And now that 2 years, especially now it's 2 years into the pandemic.
So I want to chime in on something that you started sharing in your introductory comments, that the mental health struggles for students didn't just begin because of a pandemic. There has been attention given to what is happening in the population of college students associated with mental illness and mental illness related concerns for quite some time now. And I think that the pandemic exacerbated some of those circumstances, whether it be because of the isolation people were feeling, because of the loss they were experiencing, or any number of things that were happening because we went into a space that was unprecedented, that people didn't know how to manage or what to do, and we had never been here before. So that kind of new experience can challenge all of us. And sometimes we have those hurdles in life that we have to get over that don't necessarily mark something more pervasive in our lives, but certainly capture our attention. And I think we've increased the number of students who are stressed by the experiences of a pandemic. And so we saw a need for more mental health services. We also saw the situations where families were impacted by loss or illness or any number of things that put them at a disadvantage, unfamiliar to them. And our students struggled to make a difference, to be available for their families, to be available for siblings and parents and cousins and close friends even. And that demanded more of their attention in different ways. All of those things added to a set of circumstances where we were already seeing a demand for services associated with mental illness, whether it be someone who was suffering with severe anxiety, depression, some particular diagnosed mental illness in some way, and needing to know how they would meet their needs in terms of service provision. So we have a system that's strained by additional expectation for things that might not otherwise be as problematic in the context of our day-to-day living and moving along. So we had to step up and figure out how we could be more responsive. So it's a variety of things that we're seeing.
Definitely all those different dynamics impact our students. How do you feel about this, Mr. Kamier?
Thank you. So, Kamier, that's okay. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for the invitation to speak today. And you know, I will echo what Vice Chancellor Maybank has said, and it's so important to recognize the issues that the mental health struggles have have had, and we have, I think, paid attention to the national, sort of the national scope of folks' attention to mental health in more detail during the pandemic has been an issue that's been with us for a very long time. And in my work with CUNY and prior to coming to CUNY, I worked in mental health, inpatient, outpatient, emergency crisis. You know, the mental health struggles and the need for resources and support in those areas has been longstanding and ongoing. So I welcome the opportunity to continue to have these conversations about what it is that we need to do while maintaining our ability to be flexible and to get services to those who need it. We're obviously seeing an uptick in with isolation, obviously, and the issues that the Vice Chancellor mentioned before with anxiety, depression, et cetera, school stress, as well as non-school stress, being caregivers for folks who may be ill, you know, focus on family and community connections. There's loss and grief that we're dealing with, a lot of trauma from the pandemic. And also, I think we're looking at more of a spectrum of mental health related services and experiences for people. While we have, you know, diagnostic criteria that we use in mental health centers, we also have folks maybe struggling with, you know, other needs that fit into the mental health spectrum. So I think that the more we pay attention and the wider we cast our net in terms of providing support, the better we can do all around.
Definitely. And also too, looking at how there's a correlation between not only local numbers, but the national numbers that you cited is really important. Thank you for that. Jordan?
I feel like there's nothing I can really say other than what's already been stated and just echoing, but something I do want to touch upon is just emphasizing that, and on a student perspective, oftentimes, whether they do or do not have any financial circumstances, like troubling financial circumstances, we oftentimes do rely on the services that are distributed by the school. But here at New Paltz, unfortunately, whenever a student is in crisis, first and foremost, if they're not on campus, it's often hard to even schedule anything with the PCC services here. And then with students who are on campus, unfortunately, due to the lack of funding for our psychological counseling center, students often have to wait weeks in order to get their first scheduled appointment. If a student is going through a crisis at that very moment, I don't think it's ideal for that individual to have to wait even a day or an hour to try to seek immediate attention. That's insane. That's very insane.
Jordan, thank you so much for that. That's really shining a lot of light and leading us into our next question, actually. So we have heard that some students have had trouble reaching mental health counselors on campus. And so what's happening at CUNY or SUNY to address the challenge? Are there any hurdles to providing more services to college students that we're facing? And Vice Chancellor? Oh, no, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Sorry.
You can start first, because I don't want you to start on the end. And you're like, I can't say anything else. So you can start this one.
Well, now I got a lot to say.
Let's go.
I know here at SUNY, I can't speak much for CUNY, but here at SUNY, for SUNY Student Assembly, we've created this thing called Middle Earth. So it's a 24-hour hotline that any SUNY student, so out of any of the 64 campuses, can join at any time and speak to any of the counselors that are there at the moment. At SUNY New Paltz, the Student Association has created a service called Oasis Haven, in which we have our own students who are part of the psychological center be the counselors. So considering the massive strain that PCC is currently facing, we thought that Oasis Haven would be another way to lessen the load, especially considering that PCC is only operational from Mondays through Fridays, 8 to 5. It's not going to be the most beneficial. So Oasis Haven was one way to counteract that and try to take this problem in our own hands, because constantly asking for funding or constantly waiting for a miracle to happen is not the best way to, try to counteract these struggles. We have to sometimes take the fight in our own hands.
Wow, sounds like you guys are being very proactive at SUNY. Thank you for that.
As much as possible, because we're not professionals. So it goes back to the whole fight of we needing more funding for these services for our student success.
Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Kamayer. How do you feel about that question?
Yes, and I think there are obviously many barriers that we could spend a whole session talking about barriers to services. I think I will start with resources. Obviously, there's a definite need for resources and support at every level. Financial and sort of the model of thinking about the way we're going to operate our campuses to provide a mental health positive and mental health supportive space. In terms of, I think that the resources that Jordan mentioned are so important in terms of crisis response, because you're right that our counseling centers operate as a sort of, Monday through operation. And so one of the things that we've done at CUNY during the pandemic is to roll out some and mobile support services that are accessible 24/7. We've partnered with Crisis Text Line to be able to offer crisis texting through crisis counseling through text. We have additional online supports for substance abuse screening, for mindfulness meditation, and we have some new and ongoing online and mobile support services that we're working to be rolling out soon. More on that to come if you follow along with our mental health page at CUNY. But I think it's important to recognize that not only do we need the resources to expand our services, our brick and mortar services as in our psychological counseling centers, but also being creative in the ways that we're supporting all of our students who may not want to access those services or may not have the ability to do so for one reason or another. So the more creatively we can think about the provision of mental health services, is the best way for us to overcome any obstacles that come our way.
Thank you for that. Dr. Maybank?
So I want to do a couple of things. I want to first address the fact that the demand for mental health services in higher education will always outpace the supply of services we can offer in this space. And so it does require partnership. It requires engagement on a variety of levels. So Jordan, I want to honor where you went with this in terms of talking about the peer models that make a difference in the moment of crisis, because it does matter. For a hotline, like I believe it was, you said Middle Earth was the name of the hotline. And then Oasis Haven was the name of the other peer
those
service.
Are the name of the two hotlines. And I've seen someone in the chat also just put the hotline in there.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah, so
because
thank you to whoever that was.
Those are critical resources, and we shouldn't shun the power of peer-related engagement, because sometimes I just need to reach out and know someone else is there. Mm-hmm. Someone who might be able to empathize with what I'm going through and may be able to help me find the resources I need to address the issues. And so peer models are critical in the space where we function. Additionally, as I said, knowing where the resources are in the broader community is also equally important. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to reach to community mental health services and to other crisis intervention opportunities beyond the campus resources. Yes, the counseling centers are open for a certain number of hours. They may even have extended hours, but how much of the real demand as we're seeing it now can be taken up through those resources. And so we have to be honest in recognizing at some point there may have to be a referral. And I know students are feeling like, well, wait a minute, I'm going here, my tuition is coming here, supply me with the service. But think about what we were really created to do, and that the resource that is associated with counseling comes along with that. It's not the primary service that we're here to offer, or the primary mission is really the word I'm looking for, of the institution, but it is a critical part of students being successful. So we have to be mindful, we have to be responsive, and we have to make sure that the services we provide are relevant. But we also have to get a little help from friends from time to time and reach out and partner with other resources in our communities.
Those peer models are very important, especially as college students who are facing a lot of the same struggles. Like, it is like the support that you can get from a friend or a classmate is super helpful, especially in the moment. All three of you cited something very important, that there are quite a few different reasons, whether directly associated with the pandemic or not, while college students would have some barriers or need some additional supports with their mental health. One thing in particular is mask mandates. Across the state, mask mandates have been lifted, and some students are definitely struggling with the transition back to in-person classes. So what are some steps that students can learn about available support for managing readjusting? Probably be working in tandem with community-based supports, but definitely on the college campus level. And are there any accommodations that can be made based on those needed supports? And I'm gonna start with Mr. Kamayer.
Yeah, it's an important question, and I it's interesting that we've had the mask mandates lifted, and we've had the new vaccination requirements changing. They've lifted in New York City for certain spaces, and they're changing. CUNY is working on trying to have staff vaccination campaign moving. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I think one important thing to recognize is that this is a real collective effort on all of our parts, because we're all adjusting to these changes and these difficulties. And I think the more that we're able to support one another as communities, as the New York City community, or as the SUNY community, whatever community is available in other SUNY schools. And I know New Paltz because I've been there several times, but there's SUNY everywhere, and some of them are here and some of them are there. So what does it look like on each campus, and how can we best support each other? So that as a sort of large scale picture of what we should be doing, and recognizing that we're all struggling right now, and we have to do the best we can to support one another at a wide scale.
Thank you for that. Dr. Maybank?
Yeah, I can only chime in and support what Ryan said, because I think we really have to realize that everyone is impacted by our current experience. It's not just some segment of the population of students, it's all students, whether it's because they're touched by something happening within family, if it's not personal to them. And we have to recognize that those providing the supports throughout the system are also touched by what it is that's happening. So we have to be mindful of how we engage with one another. There's always the need for greater civility, because people are stressed and things are tense. And, that's when we sometimes, our filters on, and we aren't necessarily going to think twice about how we say something. So we just jump at it and go for it. And that too can have impact on the people who are there to support us at any given moment. So it really is a matter of recognizing that we're all affected, and that we have to consider how we engage with one another, and reach out and just every now and then just offer a little kindness. I mean, it can go a long way. It's like, I don't, think that just because someone's stressed that they don't need some of our attention just on the interpersonal level, just to say, I see you. I recognize that this can be hard. And to offer those words of kindness and engagement sometimes can make all the difference. Offer a smile. Offer a kind word. I let people know. So I go throughout my day looking for my angels. I need somebody to be my angel on any given day to just do something for me. And when I'm traveling on a plane and someone helps me lift the suitcase that I packed that I should have been able to lift, that's my angel for the day. And it makes a difference. It brings a smile to your face that somebody even offered to do that. You pack that bag, lady, pick it up and put it up there the way the rest of us have done it. But when somebody just goes, can I help you with that? Thank you for your kindness.
A kindness goes such a long way.
It really does. So I think we all need to think about that. So.
And Jordan, you really touched on a lot of resources that you guys pulled together collectively on campus to create. What do you think are some ways that students, or what are some ways that students can learn about these additional supports that are available? And how do you think that, maybe from what you've heard from other college students, what are some ways that they can manage readjusting?
I'm going to answer the second part first about managing to readjust, because you'll see why.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I know you have a process.
In regards to readjusting, I want to touch upon what was said earlier, that like we're all currently experiencing all this at the exact same time, which is funny to me. It just like occurred to me like 2 years ago was around the time in which all this craziness even begun in the first place. So it's strange to see how even 2 years into this pandemic, like not much as like our opinions of everything that's been going on, our mental health crisis, everything that's been just happening between first the ongoing pandemic, the BLM movements that took place that same summer, transitioning from in-person to online classes, even just politics right now. All of it has been requiring some large amounts of resilience from everyone. So first off, thank you for everyone who's been like supporting students during this time, who've been supporting your own families and supporting each other. Because like Maybing says, like small acts of kindness truly go such a long way. In regards to readjusting though, I think it's really important to rely on your state officials, your college officials, and your student associations. We are supposed to be here to support you as best as we can. We are supposed to be here helping you advocate for whatever works best for you. I know earlier last semester when we were first placed back into an in-person experience, a lot of students, especially immunocompromised students, were very afraid of going back in person because if they were to catch the virus, it could be potentially fatal to them. So I know some accommodations that we were making for them was trying to figure out what is the best class combinations for them. If some students who are immunocompromised and don't have internet access back at home, if they chose to stay virtual because of the fear of the pandemic, we were trying our best to work with them to either find them local libraries so that they can have Wi-Fi, or potentially give them the option to take a leave of absence, because unfortunately, given current circumstances of the world, it is very understandable for a student to take a leave right now. If it's unfortunate, but considering if you don't have Wi-Fi and if you're immunocompromised, that would be the best option to go with for the time being. I'm not saying don't go back to college. I'm just saying like take a break for now. Beyond that, in regards to helping readjust is speaking to your college president about what will be best. I know the last meeting I had with him, I was explaining to him that whoever is to take over SUNY New Paltz, because we're currently overgoing a presidential search, while we're in a better spot than we were last year, or even 2 years ago with the pandemic, something very, very powerful to do would be surveying, understanding which students don't have Wi-Fi back at home, understanding which students have disabilities that would require extra resources for whatever X or Y reason, understanding your constituency and trying to best accommodate those constituents. Because while I understand we were all just hit with a curveball with all this, it is best to try to actively communicate and try to figure out what students need at the time, rather than assuming, because not every student is going to need what Jordan needs. Not every student is going to need what Joshua needs. Not every student is going to need what that Brad needs, for instance. We need to try to figure those things out.
Natasha, may I add something
Sure.
to what Jordan just said? Because I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was running to get laptops for students. Everybody was going, okay, get make sure everybody's got a laptop so they can do what they need to do. A laptop without a mechanism to connect to the internet is a desk.
Exactly. And it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. And I know someone said in the chat before, but it all starts from the top. We need to make sure that everyone does have Wi-Fi. Should be free to every single last family in America, in my opinion. I'm not trying to get into politics, but given the current world circumstances or the circumstances that we could be thrown into, that's a basic need.
It's a real thing.
Yes. And I call them essential needs, Jordan. Sorry, Natasha, I don't mean to get out of sync here, but he's just speaking to my heart in this. And I wanted to respond and just support him in what he's saying, because the essential needs of students that allow them to be successful in the spaces we are asking them to walk has to be something that we hear from students. And yes, okay, give me the laptop. No question, I need it, but can I have a hotspot too?
Exactly.
Or
It's
the knowledge of where I'm going to be able to pick up the Wi-Fi outside the building, because it does happen. So
I think you guys have access to my questions, because that's definitely segue into our next point. Jordan made two very important points. One was about internet connection, and the other part was about college students who opt to attend classes virtually, for whatever reason, whether that's economic challenges in the home, mobility, health, whatever barrier that you're facing, that you opt to take classes virtually. So in what ways can current class curriculums be modified to accommodate the group of students that can't attend traditional in-person classes? And I'm going to go ask Dr. Maybank first. And then Mr. Kamayer, I didn't think you're next, in case you think I forgot about you.
Oh, no.
Natasha, I thought I had talked enough right then, but I'm going to jump in here and answer this one.
The conversation.
Okay, so, just as I said, I think we have to be mindful of the needs that allow people to be connected. And, we have to advocate for connectedness and connectivity for communities that are disenfranchised, whether it's because they don't have the infrastructure to support it, or they don't have the tools that allow, the hardware that allows people to get connected. But from our side, from the university side, we also have to be mindful of how we make people aware of resources, because the instructional mode gets set at the beginning. I mean, it's even before the beginning of the semester. So the instructional mode is set. Then the question becomes, how do we make certain students can access the information and be connected to the experience in the way that they need to? And so we can't just assume that is going to happen. We need to have the conversation that says, okay, so there are 15 people in this particular section of this course. Do all of you have access to the Blackboard, whatever the tool is that's being used to for the platform of the course? Does everybody have access? If you do not, you don't have to call it out on the Zoom or in the experience. If you do not, please be in touch with me, and here's how you do that. And know that you have a way to make that happen. So we have to be a little more proactive in making certain that people get connected to the way we are teaching at this point, to the opportunities that we're presenting, and not just make the assumption, oh, well, yeah, this is 2022 and everybody has that. No, everyone doesn't. We don't live in a world yet where there is that much equity. And we have to be mindful from a social justice perspective that there are communities that don't have what they need to be a part of this experience, and figure out how we close that gap if we have an expectation for them to get an education and truly move forward.
Definitely part of a very, very, very large conversation. Dr. Maybank. Mr. Kammerer, would like to add on to that comment?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts of the pandemic is how much we are all learning about what education looks like and what work looks like, to take that even broader perspective. And things are changing, and we're getting information and data about enrollment trends or about mental health usage, about all of these areas. And we, I think, as representatives of the Institute of Higher Education, are also learning about what all these things mean. So I think our ability to continue to examine these issues in detail will really be helpful for all of us as we move forward. We have, as was posted in the chat a few minutes ago, our good friend Charmaine, who is on the call now, from CUNY, posted the Office of Disability Services, and they have a wide range of resources to work with our students, and to get any kind of accommodations that are necessary, and to help folks not only with accommodations that were pre-pandemic, but also now in this different world where things are as we're still learning, whatever accommodations are necessary. So thank you for putting that link up, Charmaine, and hopefully people can utilize that. I'll just add another couple of points here. One, I think, is I think training and education is going to be vitally important for our faculty workforce and staff workforce going forward. And it's something that we're at CUNY already working on. Even if I'm not personally working on it at this point, I think, there's been a lot of talk about it. And I think it's important to realize that, teaching and learning is going to look different over the next few years as this sort of gets sorted out. And fortunately, we have an online presence, a very large online presence at CUNY with our School of Professional Studies. So how can we best learn from the best practices in the field from those that have the expertise in it? And finally, my final point will be, we're talking about learning and education and the primary mission, obviously, of our universities. But also there's a mental health parallel here, particularly in the social, through the social justice lens that Vice Chancellor Maybank talked about. The unequal access and the inequities for accessing services, mental health services, by virtue of these other essential needs that may not be met. We really have to focus on how can we fulfill those needs while trying to look at it, take a broad stroke in terms of helping groups of students that do not have access to the same thing. So I will leave it there because now I've made 5 points in a row. So
thank you for those points. Jordan?
Wow, I feel like I have so much to say. I think the first thing I want to say is that this pandemic has put us in a place in which we need to be more creative in how we solve our ongoing issues, because as was stated earlier, we're not in a world in which equity exists. The word exists, the ideal exists, but equity in itself does not, unfortunately. And for instance, I'm a EOP student, so the Education Opportunity Program. Students who are a part of the EOP program are often students who face academic circumstances, challenges, or financial circumstances or challenges. And oftentimes those students will naturally be quote unquote unprepared for college or higher education because they may not have the necessary resources for them. Be that as it may, when we were put in this position 2 years ago, students in the EOP program, unfortunately, was put at an even an even harder circumstance. Lots of EOP students don't have the funding to buy textbooks already. Lots of EOP students don't have a laptop, so they could take their online coursework. They need that extra support and funding and stuff from the EOP program. But when you put those students in a circumstance in which now they have to go back home and a place in which they may not have these resources allocated to them, how do you get over that hurdle? Because not even the counselors at the EOP program were equipped for that, because we haven't been put in a circumstance like that prior. So I think honestly, it goes back to what I said earlier about having Wi-Fi available for everyone. It goes back to us being able to understand our students' needs before situations like this were to arise. Understanding that our students go through so much more than just coursework on a day-to-day basis. We have the outside world. Even currently, a lot of students are very afraid, given the circumstances that are, I'm saying circumstances a lot, giving based on what's going on in Ukraine recently. A lot of students have a lot of anxiety based on that. So it's just, how do we best support our students for what's currently going on and possible ongoing things, versus a disaster already happening and us trying to repair? Because obviously we can't prepare for everything, but we can prepare ourselves for situations the best we can. Does that make sense?
Definitely. It sounds
It's like
you're
preparing
looking
for
at
the unknown.
like proactive supports versus reactive supports.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that, because I know you saw my questions, is going to lead us into our final question. So, what are some things, we talked a little bit about disenfranchised communities, and we talked, and Mr. Kamayer, you also talked on like individuals who want to get extra supports. So, Mr. Kamayer, what do you think are some things that we can do to destigmatize addressing mental health issues and access and services? I know like a lot of our, especially CUNY students, come from our New York City disenfranchised community. So what are some things that we can do to destigmatize addressing mental health issues?
It's a great question, and it's something that I think that I heard on maybe my first day of social work school many years ago, and the stigma associated with mental health. And it seems we've all been working and talking on it for many years, and because it still is so important, and it really does present a barrier. I think there's lots of things that we can do, and one of the most important tools that I can think of at the level where, at least at the level where I sit, is because CUNY has so many great departments and services and programs available outside of the mental health space, and they may see all of our students in different capacities. And I think the ability for offices to work together across student services, very fortunately, as Vice Chancellor Maybank oversees all of these student services, she has the ability to create these connections and solutions that we can work on together. So, we see if someone goes into the Office of Disability Services that may have mental health needs, we can work together to figure out as a group how best to handle that. And in terms of overcoming stigma, we can learn from the knowledge that these other service groups and other providers have about what is making people not go to the counseling center. What is making, how can we engage in conversation with these other various groups in order to help provide the services that are necessary? And I will say that, we have a lot of initiatives in terms of our affinity groups that we have on campus at CUNY, and we have the opportunity to work together closely. But I think ultimately, the best way that we can work through some of these stigma issues is to focus on listening to students and where they're coming from and what they want out of services. I think sometimes we as administrators don't take enough time to listen to our students and figure out how we can best approach their needs. Maybe they don't need specific brick and mortar counseling services. Maybe there are other things that we can offer that would provide just as much support. So I think the more that we take the time to do that and to reach out not only to our constituencies across campuses, but also to our students to really listen to where they're coming from, that I think is the most powerful tool that we.
Thank you. Dr. Maybank, as you've been named piece of said named glue for CUNY, what do you think are some things that we can do to destigmatize mental health issues and to bolster accessing services?
So prime on my list is listen. Listen to students, listen to what they said, just as Ryan just indicated. We need to know from students what keeps them from going. It might be someone they encountered at a front desk, a receptionist, who just turned them off, and that's why they're not going. But the stigma aspect of mental health services often comes from the covert nature of mental health services. And we have to take the covers off and say, did you know that, and I'm making this one up, so don't hold me to this, don't quote this. I know this is on YouTube or however y'all are gonna hold on to this. But let's say that 6 in 10 students use mental health resources on a campus, on a college campus. Let's tell people that. You know, it's like the 4 are the unusual. Let's talk about the 6 that went. Let's make certain that people know that how to get to the services. Let's make certain that they know it's not a shame to go in that building that has the words on the outside. It's okay to go there because it may be the general, I just need to get unstuck from this space I'm in. That's why I'm a counseling psychologist, because it deals with the normal developmental issues of life. And we all hit those road bumps, those speed bumps in life where we just need a little help, you know, getting the momentum to get over that bump. And so sometimes you just need to talk to somebody. So let's normalize that and make it clear that we all need help sometimes. And reaching out is not a negative thing. Finding the thing that is going to help you in that moment is the best thing. And making certain that we send those messages clearly, that we use our marketing and our communications opportunities to let students know that, and to make it clear that you're welcome in those spaces. And it's not a fearful space. It's not a challenging space. It may be an unfamiliar space, but we're going to make it so that you feel welcome and get what you need from that space. But we first have to listen and really know what's keeping our students from using the services.
I guess it's my turn. Did Natasha freeze? I don't see her camera moving at all.
Looks fine.
Yeah, we may have lost her. So let's go for it, Jordan.
All right. I guess I'll still answer the question, yeah, because we still have a crowd. In regards to stigma, the way I've always viewed a stigma is on 2 perspectives. There's the people who exist within the stigma or the end group, and people who are viewing it from the outside who don't necessarily exist from it and may just be getting their perspectives based on people they know or media, because that's usually how stigma and stereotypes work. So my first thing, if you exist within the group, would be don't isolate yourself from others who exist within that group or others who may exist without, just because of the fear of judgment. I know oftentimes fear is something that can run rampant whenever, and like me personally, I'm a queer man. So when I first was coming out, that was one of my biggest fears of like, are people going to just automatically assume like, and you create scenarios in your head, and then oftentimes you just want to isolate. Don't do it. And in regards to mental health, I'd say don't equate yourself to whatever illness or whatever you're going through at the time. Whatever you're currently facing is not your final destination. That's not where you're meant to be at life. It is only one small roadblock in the road along in your entire journey in your life. One roadblock should not defeat you and will not defeat you. Another thing is to join support groups. During my coming out experience, I know it's not the same as mental health, but it's the best I can offer for this particular question. I know I joined support groups about my specific manner. Like why is coming out such a big issue? Why is this? Why am I facing these obstacles? Join support groups and express, like you were saying, Dr. Maybank, what about the service is making it challenging for you to, receive those services? The last thing that I like to point out and, speak more about was what you both said about listening to students more often. I cannot tell you how much that makes me like happy and proud, because oftentimes college officials, elected officials, anyone with the capability of making a decision about students will make a decision about students without those students in the room. That's crazy to me. You're making a decision that will impact someone or like a group without that constituency present in the room first, or actively getting their perspectives. That doesn't make sense. An example of this, usually whenever there's a national emergency going on or a national crisis like BLM or the Ukrainian incident, colleges or services will just automatically reinstate that, oh, we have the services, which is good, keep doing that. But if you're not reaching out to those groups of students who are possibly affected by this incident, it's like trying to fit a key in every keyhole. Every key does not fit every keyhole. That you don't have the master key to every person. You don't have the master key to every group. You need to be speaking to your constituency and have a better understanding of what works for them, and understanding that with that set constituency is still going to be incredibly diverse from person to person. So there is no right answer to everything, but we can at least try to support everyone to the best of our abilities.
Thank you so much for that. I actually heard everything. I don't know how my phone froze, but it kind of goes back to what Mr. Kamayer said about being like working from home and it being an anxiety. But definitely heard everything that was said. Thank you so much, all of you, for all that feedback about mental health support for our students and disenfranchised communities. We really covered a lot in the 40 minutes that we've been on. And for even just supporting the stance that mental health is wealth, like mental health is mental wealth. So thank you so much to our panelists, to our attendees here in Zoom, our live stream squad out there in YouTube land. But now that the panel has concluded, we're going to open our breakout rooms. We have some really great options for you to choose from. The first breakout room is going to be found on higher education funding in New York and what is happening in New York's budgetary process. The second breakout room will be a discussion about issues that colleges face regarding food insecurity. And the third is going to be about a student-led fight for economic justice in New York. So please feel free to choose from any of those that you're most interested in. And joining, and just let us know if you have any issues joining any one of those rooms.
I do have one question. I'm able to assign people to rooms. It just showed up on my computer.
Just ignore that, Jordan. Since you guys are co-hosts, it allows you to move people around, unless you want to force somebody into a room.
I don't recognize most of the names here, so no, I'm not going to mess up anyone.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Natasha. Thank you for moderating, Natasha.
No problem.
I was about to say, Natasha, thank you so much for being a wonderful moderator and keeping us moving and on track. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That was fantastic. I'm going to drop my email in the chat just in case anyone ever wants to connect about anything. My door is always open. I don't reply too fast because I'm also a student, but I do reply within the same day. And it has to be this email, the president email.
Listen, for a student, that's really fast. I never responded to emails as a student. Never.
I try my best.
Not at all, huh, Natasha?
Every time I went to college, I was always working too. So it was like, I had to do both. So like, work email versus school email. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll see you on campus. I'll see you on campus.
Okay, so since we are live streaming, I am just going to put up our panel or a slide for the next panel while everybody filters into breakout rooms here. And then we will get started at 2 o'clock with our keynote speech. Thank you once again to the folks on our first panel today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a wonderful
Jordan, it was
weekend.
great to meet you.
It was great
You are
meeting all of you
amazing.
too. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all the support that you give students.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, I'll see you
Bye-bye.
guys around.
Bye.
And for everyone who is having issues with joining breakout rooms, please send me a direct message at Kevin Dugan, and I will add you to the breakout rooms.
Look around, choose your own ground. Long you live, high you fly. Smiles you'll give and tears you'll cry. All you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. Run, rabbit, run. Dig that hole, get the sun. When at last the work is done, don't sit down, it's time to dig another one. How you live and how you fly, but only if you ride the tide. Balanced on the biggest wave, race towards an early grave.
Patty, can you share screen when we're ready?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our plenary session, and hello again to those watching our live stream on our YouTube channel. My name is Sadia Hawk. I am the chairperson of NYPIRG's Board of Directors, and I'm also a senior at Brooklyn College. Let's do a quick sound off. In the chat, let us know what campus you're from. I see Queens, Cortland, BMCC. Yes, everyone is present here. I'm loving it. Keep typing it up, guys. Welcome to you all. I'd like to introduce today's keynote speaker, Judith Enck. Judith is the founder and president of Beyond Plastics and former Region 2 administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency. But most importantly, she got her start as a student advocate working with NYPIRG. She's here today to speak about her experiences and how student activism propelled her career. If you would like to have a question possibly answered by Judith at the end of her remarks, please send a direct message through the chat to Kevin Zugan. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn over the floor to Judith.
Thank you so much, Sadia. It's so good to be with you. What an honor to be invited to join these amazing NYPIRG student leaders from all over the state. I'm going to share my screen and see if we can get this. Can you see that okay? Great. So as Sadia mentioned, my name is Judith Enck. I'm currently the president of an organization called Beyond Plastics. Follow us on Twitter. It's @PlasticsBeyond. And follow me on Twitter @ENCKJ. And please live tweet this talk. I use she, her pronouns. I'm talking to you from the unceded homelands of the Mohican people. And I'd like to start with all of us just having a moment of silence, sending support to the people in Ukraine and also to the brave people, mostly young people in Russia who are in the streets protesting Putin's invasion of the Ukraine. So a moment of silence. If you're a prayerful person, a moment of prayer, but let's just focus on that for a moment, please. Thank you. So I'm here to talk about the environmental movement and your role in it. The first Earth Day literally attracted millions of people into the streets, calling for worldwide commitment to improving our environment. It led to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, passage of laws like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. Our environmental conditions in a certain respect in the US has improved since then, but we still have this fundamental problem of lack of sustainability. The US has 4% of the world's population, but we use 24% of the world's natural resources. And then there's a ripple effect on environment and public health that affects all of this. So you as student leaders, you have to think about what skills do you need to be an effective advocate in the world. And I, of course, have spent my last a long time working to protect the environment, but I've listed just a couple other issues. And when you read the paper or the media in the morning and you read something outrageous on civil rights issue or not enough funding for higher education, not enough support for mental health services, you're halfway there because you're paying attention. But then the question is, how do you gain the skills to be an effective advocate to work for change. NYPIRG is an organization where you can secure and sharpen your advocacy skills, and it made a really big difference for me. So most of my career was in the environmental community. And then I entered state government, federal government. I'll tell you the whole boring origin story later, but I was honored to serve in the Obama administration at EPA Region 2. And we did a lot of work, but one issue we didn't do much work on was plastic pollution. And that's what I'm working on today. You see the massive increase in plastic waste, which is evidence all over the world. And at the same time, we are challenged by dealing with a warming planet, the climate crisis, which is central to NYPIRG's work, thankfully. Climate change does not cause hurricanes, but it makes hurricanes more intense. So a Category 2 hurricane becomes a Category 4 hurricane because the ocean or the sea surface water is much warmer. The climate crisis is here. When I served at the EPA, I was fortunate that my region included New York, New Jersey, 8 Indian nations in New York, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. The Caribbean is regularly hard hit with stronger and stronger hurricanes. The world is literally catching on fire. This is a photograph from Australia, where over 1 billion animals were killed in Australian wildfires. Then, of course, we had similar problems in the Western US. And a lot of this is connected, not to just burning fossil fuels, which is huge, but also to climate change. My organization put out a report a few months ago, The New Coal, Plastic, and Climate Change. And in that report, we documented that the plastic sector will surpass coal-fired power plants in terms of more greenhouse gas emissions. So you, in your work at NYPIRG, I know you know that a major source of greenhouse gas emissions are power plants and transportation. So electricity generation, cars, trucks, airplanes, major sources of air pollution, in addition to carbon emissions. But now plastics is the plan B for the fossil fuel industry. They know that there is less demand for fossil fuel for electricity and transportation, because thankfully we're finally shifting to clean renewable energy sources and heat pumps like the one right over my shoulder, getting New York City off of gas and hopefully statewide. And we're seeing more investment in mass transit. We're electrifying the fleet more. So for instance, people are buying electric cars, electric buses, et cetera. So the fossil fuel and the chemical industry have teamed up to build more plastic manufacturing facilities in places like St. James Parish, Louisiana, in an area called Cancer Alley, because cancer rates are so high because of the concentration of plastic manufacturing facilities in petrochemical plants. This is the amazing Sharon Levine, Lavigene. Look her up. Sharon is living in St. James Parish, and she's fighting 2 big plastic factories proposed by Formosa Plastics. She won the prestigious Goldman Environmental Award last year. And when you hear Sharon speak, she will tell us in detail how plastic production is an environmental justice issue. It's also a water quality issue. About 15 million tons of plastic enter the ocean every single year. 80% of that is litter from the street, not not beverage containers, because we have deposit on beverage containers, so people pick them up, but plastics that don't have nickel deposits or dime deposits on them. And thank you to NYPIRG for leading the charge in expanding the bottle bill. I have such enormous respect for Ann Rabe, your new environmental director. Ann is a force of nature. I always want to be on the same side of an issue as Ann is because she is tenacious. She is really smart, and you should all go out of your way to learn from Ann. And I also have really enjoyed getting to know Ryan Carson, who's working on the Bottle Bill campaign. Ryan is a badass, and he knows how to get stuff done. And he gives me great hope on the future of these issues so that these numbers will be changing. What does that mean when you pollute the ocean with plastic? Well, scientists predict that for every 3 pounds of fish in the ocean, there will be 1 pound of plastic. And a huge part of the world relies on fish from the ocean as their major source of protein. This issue is overwhelming. So every so often you have to ease up and share interesting cartoons like this one. You get it? You know, Bob, you're talking to a plastic bag, not another jellyfish. And this is one of my least favorite slides. This is a seabird. There's so much plastic in the marine environment that seabirds are eating the plastic thinking that it's food. And then they die because they fill up their stomachs. They're not getting calories. They'll often bring the red and orange plastic back to the nest for the chicks to eat. They choke on it. We really need more of this and less of that. All of these things I'm mentioning because of this. Every supermarket in the country probably has this aisle, huge health issues. For the very first time, scientists in Italy have documented the presence of microplastics in the human placenta, both the maternal side and the fetal side. There's plastic in the air, in the water, in beer, in honey, in wildlife, and now people. The bad news is we cannot recycle our way out of the problem. 8.5% recycling rate for plastic is really, really inadequate. So you know the solution to dealing with the plastic crisis. It's to make less plastic. Easier said than done, but that's the central element of any policy that Beyond Plastics and even NYPIRG is supporting at the state level. You need to get really informed on this issue. Take my online class on plastic pollution. I offer it every semester. It's on Zoom, 1 credit, or you can audit it. I'm filled up for this semester, but I will be offering it again in September, 7 weeks, Wednesday nights. Write that down. What we talk about in the class is the need for alternatives, whether it's electricity generation or alternatives to plastics. And we get those alternatives when we become active at the state level. So my NYPIRG story began when I was a college student at the College of St. Rose in Albany. I come from a very loving but economically struggling family. I was the only one in my family to go to college. Both of my parents did not graduate high school, and both of them loved me so hard that I felt like I could do anything with my life, even work on issues that I care about and figure out how to make it my career. So as a NYPIRG student intern in 1980, trying to pass the original bottle bill. So I've come full circle with NYPIRG. Could not get it passed in 80, so I did the internship a second time. 1981, didn't get it passed then, but I learned a lot about how that building, the New York State Capitol, operates. I then went after graduation and worked for an organization, Environmental Advocates, where we finally passed the bottle bill and a whole bunch of other bills. After Environmental Advocates, I actually went back to NYPIRG, where I never was on the NYPIRG staff before, but I joined the staff, spent 10 years as a community organizer working on solid waste issues. I then entered the world of state government, spent 8 years in the New York Attorney General's office as the Attorney General's environmental policy advisor. I'm not a lawyer, but I think I am able to think like a lawyer. So 8 fun years in the New York Attorney General's office. I was then appointed Deputy Secretary for the Environment in the governor's office. And then when Barack Obama got elected, I decided I really want to work for him, and somehow was appointed EPA Regional Administrator. Before that, I worked for 2 governors, including David Patterson, and that's the side of my head greeting Desmond Tutu. And it was when I was at the EPA. When I was at the EPA, I got to meet lots of really interesting, great people. Cory Booker, because he was and still is the amazing senator from New Jersey. And what's really fun is NYPIRG became a family affair. My son, Reed Dunley, who is a journalist, was a NYPIRG project coordinator, I think, for 1 semester at Queens College. And my husband, Mark Dunley, who's in the microphone there, he was one of the student founders of NYPIRG when he was a student at RPI. And that is us just pre-COVID at the governor's mansion doing a climate change rally. A family that rallies together stays together. And I had a really good time working at the EPA. That's Lisa Jackson, who was the administrator when I was serving as regional administrator. And then when the Obama administration was over, I had a lot of time to think about what to do next. I decided to work on plastics, and you should too, because there are not enough people working on it. And it is a climate change issue, it's a health issue, it's an environmental justice issue. And we're only going to win when we involve large numbers of people and we speak out. Whenever I go to a climate change rally, I bring the same sign, Polars for Solar. And that was, I have this in the slideshow because this was during the Trump administration when he proposed opening up offshore ocean sites for oil and gas drilling. And remarkably, from community organizing, we were able to block it. So I feel like I've come full circle. I'm back working on the bottle bill in recycling. I've toured many recycling centers. Those are baled aluminum cans in Ulster County. And working together, you can have an impact on issues that you care about. Among my students at Bennington College, I've noticed that there is this trend of students working alone, almost as democracy entrepreneurs. They do their own projects, they do social media, they do important work. I don't think you get as much done working alone. You need to work with a group. You need to have guidance from people like Blair Horner and Russ Haven and Megan Ahern. This is not their first rodeo. They know what works, what doesn't work. When you work as a group, and particularly a group like NYPIRG, you get stuff done and you have fun along the way. These issues can get overwhelming, particularly in the light of what's going on in the world today. So working with a group, you can work on your strengths and you can have fun doing it. And you can be a presence on social media. Follow Beyond Plastics on social media, follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. I know only old people do Facebook, but social media can be a force for good and a force for change, but it can't be the only thing you do. It's not a substitute for rolling up your sleeves and doing organizing, contacting elected officials, holding public rallies, having letters to the editor printed. All of that comes together to affect change. Those are skills you get at NYPIRG, and it stays with you your entire life. So thanks so very much, and I'm happy to take any questions. Look at that on the dot. Any questions or comments?
Hey, Jude, there's a question in the chat right now from Marissa.
Yeah.
First question. Yeah, Marissa. First question is, what is your favorite Beyond Plastics hack? We all know making the shift to reusable water bottles and grocery bags and avoiding using other plastic bottles. And is there something else that we can do on an individual level to help make these shifts?
There's not enough we can do as individuals to really change the trajectory of what we're facing. So the most important thing is to become informed and politically active. We need to get systemic change. I'm pretty careful. I try to avoid plastics, but when I go to the supermarket, I often have no choice on certain items. And it's not our fault. It's because the industry is flooding the market with single-use plastics. So I think the most important hack is voting, supporting candidates who are good on the environment, and working with groups like NYPIRG to pass Bigger, Better Bottle Bill, and also a strong extended producer responsibility bill. So yes, Marissa, the answer is to always organize.
Fantastic. Here's another question from Russ over at Nassau Community College. He knows that NYPIRG has a long history of working with environmental justice communities on environmental and public health issues. Why is keeping environmental justice central to our work so important?
It is so important because it's the environmental justice communities that are on the receiving end of so much pollution. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from my good friend Joe Ritchie, who has been working on the Norlite hazardous waste incinerator in Cohoes. If that polluting incinerator was in any other community, it would have been shut down years ago. But companies also cite polluting facilities in environmental justice communities because they think it's the path of least resistance. They think people are not going to stand up for their communities. They're wrong about that. I often wonder why I've spent the last 40 years working on waste. It's kind of an odd issue to spend your entire life on. Part of it is because of that early slide I showed about how the US consumes so much natural resources, even though we're only 4% of the world's population, and creates so much waste. And if you don't reduce or compost or recycle, then waste goes to landfills and incinerators. They are almost always cited in low-income communities and communities of color, and it directly affects people's health. So the next panel with Joe Ritchie and Clean Air Coalition of Western New York and my friend George Pafal with All Our Energy, those other speakers, everything they do is through the lens of environmental justice. And the level of air pollution and water pollution that people are exposed to should not be determined by their zip code. We currently have a separate and unequal system of environmental regulation in this country. Low-income neighborhoods have almost become sacrifice zones. Exhibit A is Cancer Alley in Louisiana, but also the city of Cohoes in upstate New York.
Thank you, Judith. Two more questions. First, this comes from Patty over in Buffalo. What is the most rewarding moment for you in your organizing career?
There are so many. Shutting down the Albany Answers garbage incinerator in downtown Albany, an environmental justice community, that was great. I was working at NYPIRG at the time, passing the bottle bill originally in 1982. That was great fun. Getting PCB lighting out of New York City schools when I was at the EPA was pretty significant. Getting PCBs out of the Hudson River after a 30-year epic battle with the little mom and pop company GE. That was fun. There are a lot of important environmental issues where one person can make a difference. One of my favorite things about working at the EPA was I had Puerto Rico in my district, in my region, and I was able to do a lot of environmental improvements in Puerto Rico. So a lot of this work is a grind. My reaction to this weekend's snowstorm predicted for upstate New York is like, great, I can work all weekend, because you just never get through your to-do list. But there are also wonderful moments of joy and collaboration and friendship that really, really sticks with you. And I agree with Joe Ritchie. The next big victory is going to be shutting down the Norlite hazardous waste incinerator.
Excellent. Can't wait until we win, because it's what we do best at NYPIRG. And for your last question, Judith, this comes from Brian at New Paltz. First, thanks you for your heartfelt, inspiring presentation and all the work that you've done, and wants to know what you feel about the European Union and other municipalities around the world banning the production of plastic waste, and if there's anything similar that we can do in New York, local municipalities, or the nation as a whole to echo these sentiments.
Well, the EU has banned 10 different single-use plastic items, everything from Q-tips to straws, polystyrene foam. New York has banned plastic bags and polystyrene food foam containers. We can do more. I think the most important thing is to pass a really strong extended producer responsibility law, which gets the details right. EPR puts the responsibility for reuse and recycling on the companies that produce the packaging, like McDonald's or Starbucks, rather than you and I. So I really appreciate being in the trenches with Ann Rabe and Ryan and George Paval and others. This is happening in real time. We are trying to get New York to pass a bill. Right now, it's not a good bill that the governor has introduced. So I think that's the most we can do that will have the most good across the board.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Judith.
My pleasure. Great to see you all.
I don't know if you have any last remarks before we close before we go into our next panel discussion.
My final remarks are: find the issue that grabs your head and your heart and find a way to make a career out of it. Because once you graduate, you're going to be busy with a lot of things. And you're going to have student debt, which is unfortunate. But find a way to wiggle into working for a nonprofit group or government where you can work on whatever you are passionate about, because then it doesn't feel like work. I can honestly say my 40 years of doing environmental advocacy, both inside and outside government, I have never, ever been bored. And every morning I wake up and I think I can be a force for positive change. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. I think I always can be. So really try to organize your life so you can make a career out of working on issues you care about. And supporting NYPIRG allows you to build your own skills, and it will serve you in any setting. So I think NYPIRG turns 50 next year. NYPIRG is an institution. I cannot imagine New York State without it. And NYPIRG only exists with strong student leaders. That means it's all of you. So stay in the arena. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Judith. And immediately, we are going to go straight to our next panel discussion. So, Sadie, I'd like to take it away.
Wonderful. Welcome to the final panel discussion for the day. And hello again to those watching our live stream on our YouTube channel. My name is Sadia Hawk. I'm the chairperson of NYPIRG's Board of Directors, and I'm a senior at Brooklyn College. And I'll be moderating this panel on environmental justice and grassroots organizing. As a reminder, after this panel discussion, we will be breaking out into 3 different rooms. This afternoon's breakout rooms will all feature games, so there'll be a lot of fun to stick around for that. Info to join breakout rooms will pop up immediately after our conversation. You can select the one that you'd like to join at the conclusion of this panel. If for any reason you have any trouble getting to the breakout room, feel free to log back into the main room, which is the one that we're in now, and someone will assist you. Lastly, similar to the other panels, everyone will be on mute. If you have any questions, please add them to the chat box and we'll be answering them in real time there. If there is a serious disruption that we cannot address, we will be bringing the event to a hard stop. So now onto our discussion. Today, we'll be hearing from 4 leaders in the environmental movement. They work in different parts of the state and work on many different issues. One thing that ties their work together is the grassroots organizing is critical to push their issues forward. We know the threats facing our planet are vast, and New York State has a lot of work to do to combat the climate crisis and protect our air and water. New York currently only gets about 5% of its electricity from wind and solar. Toxic air and water pollution continue to put our communities at risk, and new projects that prop up fossil fuel power plants are still being proposed. That's why grassroots activists from all corners of the state are stepping up and organizing the public to push for policies that meet the scale of these crises. Without further ado, I will introduce our panelists briefly, and then we will jump into our discussion on the campaigns they're working on and how together grassroots power can win. Emily Tarana is a leadership development and organizing director at Clean Air Coalition of Western New York. Joe Ritchie is lead organizer for Lights Out Norlight, which is in the Capital Region. Akia Khan is Climate and Inequality Campaigns Associate with New York Communities for Change out of New York City, and George Paval is Executive Director of All Our Energy on Long Island. So now we'll begin our questions. All panelists will have an opportunity to answer each question. We'll start out with you, Emily, for question 1 and alternate who answers first for the following questions. So question 1, what environmental campaign is a priority for your organization right now? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on this really amazing panel today. I feel really honored to be with all of you. Right now, Clean Air is working on 2 major statewide campaigns. The majority of our campaigns are really rooted in community and rooted in neighborhood, working against point source pollution and hazardous waste. And over the past couple of years, we've realized that in order to stop playing whack-a-mole at these individual sites, we needed to go into the belly of the beast in Albany and reform and change and make more just hazardous waste cleanup laws in New York State as a whole. So right now we're working on a campaign in the New York State budget to amend the New York State Brownfield program, which is a hazardous waste cleanup program that relies on private development and ultimately taxpayer reimbursement, letting polluters off the hook for the mess that they left behind, to include more opportunities for meaningful community engagement, higher levels of cleanup standards inside of environmental justice communities, and higher wages for our brothers and sisters and siblings in labor. So always keeping an eye on what's happening on the ground and also going to the root of those issues that we see in Albany.
Thank you, Emily, for that introduction. Joe?
Yeah, so thanks for having me again. It's really awesome to be here with NYPIRG and other fellow students as well, as I'm a senior in Syracuse University, so this is really awesome. So we also have 2 really big campaigns for Lights Out Norlight. One, the name kind of implies trying to shut down the Norlight hazardous waste incinerator in Cohoes, New York, which is only 100 feet away from the Saratoga site's public housing development. And that's kind of goal 2. We're advocating for the residents to be relocated to safer housing, because we've found that they've been breathing in toxic silica dust that contains razor sharp glass particles. Norlight's also the #1 mercury emitter in the entire state, with over 50 pounds per year being emitted. That's a pretty ridiculous number of mercury, and that's during their optimal conditions of incineration. And we were able to get a successful victory on denying Norlight the chances of buying this property because the housing authority put it up for sale. And we were able to bring the community together and speak out against them buying this. And ultimately, we're having the city of Cohoes get this property and turn it into hopefully something more equitable for the community and something that will benefit the Cohoes and the capital region. And we're also trying to enhance the voices of other struggles in the capital region, such as the Dunn landfill that's just 5 minutes across the river, that's right across the street from a elementary school, and also trying to help our friends in Southern Albany County with the Lafarge cement kiln, which is also right across the street from a school. So we're trying to elevate the voices of environmental justice in the entire capital region, and we've had a lot of successes, and I'll talk more about those later. But it's been a real interesting journey and a fun one, and something I'm really passionate about and excited to speak with you all today about. So thanks for having me again.
That's awesome, Joe. Thank you. Akia?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Thank you for having me here today. So two of the really large campaigns we're working on right now, really trying to prioritize. The first one is to defend Local Law 97. Local Law 97 is a bill that we passed in December. It ensures that all buildings that apply for permits can't include gas in their construction. So they can't have gas stoves, gas heating. And it was a really great big win for New York City. The only issue is, even though it has passed, our current mayor, Adams, we're afraid that he isn't going to fully implement it. He's going to cut penalties and make it more difficult for us to truly get all the benefits that this law would have. So one of our large campaigns is to run some sign-on letters. We're doing rallies and protests, and we're really trying to get a grassroots movement behind this law and show that there's a large amount of local, like, climate activist support, community leaders behind it, and hopefully get him to fully implement it. Similarly, on the state level, we're trying to pass a state gas ban. Governor Hochul did announce in her state budget that she would have a state gas ban, but her timeline has it happening in 2027. And we needed to align with New York City's goals, which is to have small buildings by 2024 and have larger buildings comply by 2027. So in order to do this, we have Senator Kavanaugh and Assembly Person Gallagher sponsoring the All Electric Buildings Act, which would ensure that we can expedite this timeline to 2024 and hopefully by 2024 or by the end of 2023, hopefully. And yeah, that has also been a really large effort with a lot of partners, NYPIRG being one of them. We're also working with Food and Water Watch, We Act, and yeah, those are two of the campaigns.
Thank you. Those are such important campaigns. George?
Hi, thank you. First, let me just say thank you so much for including us today in everything that you all are doing. I am so humbled to be on this meeting with so many incredible activists that are doing amazing work. You are the leaders of the future, and these are the people that are making that future happen. So one of the things that we've been focused on the most in the past year is making sure that New York State gets a realistic and equitable extended producer responsibility law. And so there's been some proposals out from the governor and from the Senate in the last year. And both of them really turn over the entire regulation of any potential system to make the producers pay for the life cycle costs of their materials. The two bills that are out there put the industry in control of making up the rules and defining who might be held accountable if there's a problem. And we believe that New York State should be regulating that and should be regulating the industry that manufactures items that can become pollution, and not the other way around. those industries should not be defining what New York State's laws are that pertain to them. And so we have been working on the ground with people that we know locally in Long Island, but we have also been working together with NYPIRG, who has been a super partner in our work to put together a coalition that is so far 80 organizations called Countdown to Zero Waste New York, which has lofty goals to get to zero waste. And EPR is one of the steps on the road. And that is what we've been working very hard on. And thankfully, we also have some incredible allies like Judith Enck, who has been an unbelievable partner and leader that we have been working with, as well as Anne Rabe from NYPIRG and Ryan Carson from NYPIRG have been superb partners. I can't really thank them enough for all of the work that they have done, have made what we're doing, I won't say easier, but more effective, that we're all working together.
Thank you so much, George. So we'll jump into the next question. What was the most powerful grassroots organizing action or series of actions that you were a part of in recent years? We'll start off with Joe.
Yeah, so the most recent one, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we're trying to relocate the residents of Saratoga sites where I used to live, and I just moved because of this issue. We were able to deny a billion-dollar company like Trade2B to get the ownership rights of Saratoga sites and expand their operations. And we were able to do that through grassroots activism and really improving the voices of people who have been silenced for decades. And it was a real awesome experience to see the Cohoes Housing Authority vote Norlight down on purchasing my home. And it was really great to see the city of Cohoes getting this land. But we'll also be advocating for better uses for the land for the city. The fight does not stop there. And of course, we were able to help pass one of the first laws in the nation dealing with PFAS incineration. And this was monumental and has actually, I think, sparked a change within the federal government. And with the new DOD incineration moratorium, I think reflected a lot on the work that we did, because we found out that Norlight was incinerating AFFF millions and millions of pounds. And we were able to find that out only because of organizations like the Sierra Club, who did a lawsuit, and we were able to find this out. And we activated, and I had a lot of help from Judith and NYPIRG as well. And we were able to get, again, I believe one of the first laws in the nation dealing with PFAS incineration, and has now set the tone for how we deal with these toxic chemicals going forward. And I'm going to be very excited in the next couple months when we get this facility shut down too, because the residents have had enough, the city has had enough, and the state has had enough of this facility. And it's time to really elevate the voices of those who have been silenced for decades to come.
Absolutely, change is needed. Akia?
Yeah, I'll talk about Local Law 97. I did come in at like the last month of Local Law 97 when it was like just being passed and we were really trying to get it over the finish line. It really does have a significant history for like New York City politics as well, because it was largely a grassroots movement. It started with like a sign-on letter with hundreds of signatures from community leaders showing their support for this law. And there has been just so much community involvement in really getting it passed. The first month that I was with NYCC was the month that they were, trying to get it over the finish line. The first project I had was to influence an elected official who was basically against us passing this. So we, did targeted ads. We had people call into his office. And yeah, the first weekend I was working with them, I was calling our members, asking them to call the office. And that had a large effect. We eventually got it passed. And even now, with the law being passed in trying to defend it, we are still relying on our community and our members and just NYCC's community to really get it over that finish line again and make sure that it's fully implemented. And a lot of this involves just like having rallies. So just last week with NYPIRG, in large part NYPIRG and Food and Water Watch, we had a really amazing rally in front of One Bryant Park. The significance of that is it's owned by the Durst Corporation, and it is one of the largest polluting buildings in New York City. So we had a great rally with a lot of student turnout. We had council members, public advocate Jamani Williams, and comptroller Brad Lander. And we had a bunch of the students speak and community leaders, and it just showed really great support. And it was picked up by Politico, by Gotham, and now Adams knows that we are aware of what he's doing, that we're watching his actions, and that if he doesn't fully implement it, there is like a force that will fight for it. And it just speaks to like the power that our community has. And yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Sally.
That's so true. The work never stops. George?
Sure. So I think the most powerful grassroots organizing action that we did was probably the culmination of our little campaign in the city of Long Beach that went from 2015 through 2016 to see if we could get the city of Long Beach to pass an ordinance to get rid of plastic bags. And we really hit the pavement. We spoke to every civic group. We spoke to every religious group. We spoke to anyone that would speak with us. And we found tremendous support. And so one of the best events that we did was we held a rally in front of City Hall where we actually had over 150 people came. We had really, had so much support that the City Hall, the City Council members actually, before going into their meeting, all stopped and spoke at our event that was there to push them to do something. And they all agreed with us, which was something was amazing. And so flash forward a few months later, they did pass such a thing. And the moment that all really came home for me was the day that the bag law started. And a few days into it, I had to just make a quick stop at the supermarket on my way home. And, there was a lot of people complaining and, it was going to be the end of the world without plastic bags. And I was in a rush, and I figured other people that are in a rush were probably the people who were going to be complaining and who were going to be most inconvenienced, or at least thought that they were. And here I was walking into the supermarket after work, and every single person had brought their own bag. My gosh, we really did that. It was amazing. And things like that you have to look forward to in your work. All of you organizers, I hope you have that feeling.
That's so empowering. Thank you for that. Emily?
I want to share a bit about an action that our organization did a couple of years ago before the pandemic started. There was Clean Air has long organized around one of a criminally run and managed Coke manufacturing facility in Tonawanda, New York, which is a first-ring suburb of Buffalo and is very close to where I grew up. There's a super long history. I would really encourage folks to read about it on our website. But ultimately, when the plant shut down in 2018, the question became which hazardous waste cleanup program is this site going to go into? In our organization, our membership wanted it to go into the polluter pay program so that Honeywell, who was the primary responsible party, would pay to clean up the mess. Long story short, we had to have a very, very long fight with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC, to have the site go into the polluter pay rather than the taxpayer funded program. We had a meeting. We invited the DEC commissioner, Basil Sagos, as well as folks in his administration, to come to Tonawanda and sit really in the shadow of the 3 infamous smokestacks at Tonawanda Coke. And as we were preparing for that meeting, we thought, We have hit this man with facts. We have hit him with reports. We have hit him with stories. We have hit him with all of these different things, with experts, with labor people, with this people, all these people that we had a relationship and were in coalition with. And ultimately I said, we need to bring the people who can't be in this room and make him sit face to face with them. So we set up an altar of all of the members that we had lost in Tonawanda, including my own mother who passed away from cancer a few years ago, after living 40 plus years next to this site. And it really shifted the conversation, the tone and pace of that conversation, and ultimately what was possible for our organizing. Big flashy things are important, and getting as many people as we can are important. And also that bringing our stories and the heart and the real impact of environmental injustice is really, really important. So anytime we have an opportunity to do that, I would encourage you to do so.
That's awesome, Emily, changing the narrative. Okay, so in your view, what does grassroots organizing as a strategy bring to the table compared with other strategies like litigation and so-called access politics? We'll start with Akia.
Yeah, so I think it's significant to mention that New York Communities for Change, we mainly organize in communities of color and low-income neighborhoods. And those neighborhoods are particularly vulnerable. They have very diverse people living there, and they have issues that need to be addressed, not only with like expediency and importance, but they need to have a say in what actually happens. And I think that's what gets lost when people look at the views of like grassroots versus access politics, because access politics, a lot of people think that in some ways, access politics is actually more beneficial because maybe you can get things done quicker, because you can have more of a say in what goes on. But that really doesn't matter if the people that actually live in the community don't get a say themselves. So in NYCC, we really value giving our community leaders the platform. So our membership base is mainly made out of really great, just passionate people who really care about what happens to their neighbors. And we give them the platform to speak up about the issues. And then we just provide the support and the foundation for them to really go forward. And as you guys continue to organize, I would recommend you do the same, like uplift the people that live in the communities, make sure you hear the voices of what's actually going on and give them the platform whenever you're able to.
So important. Those voices are so important. Thank you for that. George?
Yeah, so I think for us, so All Our Energy was formed because we felt that there was no ground game in a lot of the things that we were interested in, teaching people about renewable energy, supporting offshore wind coming to Long Island. There was a number of people working on those things, and we felt that the grassroots was missing in a lot of those campaigns. And so we got together and, what we're here to do is to activate, educate, involve, and empower the public in becoming environmental stewards. And that's what we try to do every day. And that's really grassroots campaigns and organizing. And so the difference is that we, of course, do speak to legislators, and we, of course, do speak to decision makers. But it's more important for us to speak to the public and to people who are interested in what we're talking about, as well as people who may become interested. Because when we make change with people on the ground and they get involved in what we're working in, what we're working on, their being involved makes a change, right? Those people have changed what their habits may be or their thoughts could be. It also has empowered them to be more active in making the world that they would prefer to see. And so that is success for us. Although we would love to see the laws that we like passed, we make change with every person who makes change with us, right? And nobody can take that away, whether we win or lose in the legislative arena. People have made change with us, and that's really why we focus on that, because win or lose in the other realms, if people change and adopt the things that we're talking about and become more involved, then we won either way.
That is so true. Thank you for that. Emily?
Yeah, I believe in grassroots power and the power of people coming together to speak truth to what they've experienced and come together to organize with their neighbors and their friends and their family to make change. I think that our job as organizers, our job as activists, as advocates, is really to uplift the leadership and build the leadership of the people that we're organizing with every step of the way. I have a little Post-it note on my desk at work, if I ever go back to my office, that says, even if it takes longer to get there, the more people with hands on it along the way, the better it will be. So everything, and believing that people want to and are able to take risks in their lives to make the world a better place, to build up those skills so that it's not just an organizer coming in all the time, but that really we're building up democracy as a verb, and liberation as a verb, is something that we're actively doing and practicing all the time, so that it is sustainable. When we win something big up here, what does it mean for the people down here? And when there's a problem down here, how much work it takes to solve it on all the different levels. I hope that made sense.
Absolutely, it does make sense. Thank you, Emily. Joe?
Yeah, so I think one of the big problems is that I think the reason why we're all in these struggles is because of these access politics and because of the machine that has been allowed to manifest for decades, if not centuries, really, in our country. And, we really have to elevate the voices of the people who haven't been talked, who haven't been heard. And when Lights Out Norlight gets victories, I hear optimism from the community for people who, when I first started talking to them, told me, I'll never get anything done because nothing has been done before. It's been tried before. Well, guess what? We did that. We denied Norlight to buy Saratoga sites, and we're going to shut them down. And those people who have been cynical for decades, some of these people have lived in this area their whole lives, including myself, and they've seen nothing get done. And when I see the glimmer of hope in their eyes, that just motivates me. And that tells me what we're doing is right. I don't care what the bureaucrats are saying. I don't care what the politicians are saying. I know what the community wants. And as a grassroots organizer, you have to feed off of that energy, because that's what's going to drive you. And that's what's going to really force the issue to become great. And I think one of the best strategies you can do is that politicians don't like to be painted in a negative light, especially in the press. So if you're able to get press coverage, letters to the editor, if you're able to go on the news, get the news people to come to you, it works. And the people who run the city of Cohoes and the county of Albany know, guess what? If they're not doing a good job, they're going to be in the news the next day, including the commissioner, Basil Sagos. I've met with him as well, with my group. And I'll be honest, he flat out lied to us, and we called him out on that. And guess what? The very next week, the governor signed our PFAS bill. So grassroots activism works. Sometimes you have to be a little cutthroat, and you can't let these people who are being paid exorbitant amount of money to run your life, because you live in that community. They don't know what's best for you. You know what's best for them, and you know what's best for the community. And that energy, I think, is what you really needs to propel you. And I think that's what differentiates grassroots activism and the machine that has been allowed to chug for all these years.
Thank you so much, Joe. You guys all are examples of how grassroots organizing works. With our follow-up question, what is a challenge to grassroots organizing, and how did you contend with that challenge? We'll start off with George.
Sure, thanks. So, yeah, so there's lots of little nasty things that come up, like how do you keep momentum going? It's a continuous game to make sure that you have the next thing happening while you're working on what you're working on now, so you don't lose momentum. And a really good example of that was, of course, during the pandemic, we lost momentum, and it took a long time to really get our ball rolling again. We made all of the things that we did in-person events, and we had a number of them scheduled when the pandemic hit. So how do you still reach people when you can't reach people? And it became, of course, everybody dealt with this issue, right? It's part of our entire culture now, right? So yeah, so that was a big problem. We did overcome it, but I think for the bigger term, I think there's a couple of things that challenge our grassroots organizing. So overcoming apathy is huge. And so some of the other things that happen to us as more of a grassroots organization is when there is big talk happening, and that can sometimes make the general public very apathetic when, oh, we heard that this is going to happen. But, and so, our political leaders on both sides of the aisle do make big pronouncements, and then sometimes don't necessarily ever live up to them, and they don't happen. But in the meantime, the pronouncements have put people off, right? And have put people into the camp of thinking, oh, well, somebody's working on this now, I don't have to think about it. And so those are big obstacles that we have to overcome all of the time to keep people focused on where we need to get to. My background is in construction, and at that in that sphere, it's a paying attention to the details to make sure that you get to the end where things need to be. And so that's one thing that saves me is that was my background, to make sure that we can still pay attention to the details and get to the end point where we need to be. Even though the public may have been sent away or led to believe that things would happen, we need to bring them back to make sure that they actually do happen. And we need everybody's involvement and help to make the movements that make change happen.
Absolutely, people power. Emily?
Yeah, I would say a challenge to grassroots organizing is that this work is urgent and it takes a long time, and that we are all just human beings trying to live and do hard things. You can burn out doing this work, because especially, when you are directly impacted by an issue, when you are directly being poisoned by a facility, when you are directly being harassed and experiencing these different forms of oppression, it can feel like, why in the world won't these people listen? I'm screaming at you. I'm showing you the problem. You have the power. Why won't you get off your ass and do something? And I think that can feel really incredibly isolating, can feel lonely. It can make you feel stupid. It can make you feel crazy even for going up against and thinking that you have the audacity. People have told me, how dare you? How dare you say these things? How dare you want these things? And the way that we get through that is really with one another and having the long-term view in mind. I look at organizing like we're climbing a mountain. Ultimately, I want to live in a free world without systemic racism, without patriarchy, without capitalism, where we're all living in this healthy, beautiful way. And I believe that we can get there. And if I put all my eggs in that basket every time I started a campaign, I would never want to wake up to do this work. And so what are the campaigns that we can run and win to create more opportunities for justice, to pull down money, to pull down power, to pull down decision-making, and lift up our people along the way, climbing that mountain towards freedom. And taking a break and finding a hobby and watching Survivor and doing whatever, to remember that we're people and that while we are building the new world, we need to be living our lives as well. And we have to have chutzpah. We have to have that let's go, fire my belly. I'm always ready to cuss somebody out in power. And also I need somebody who's going to say, Emily, you need to take a bath. Let's go eat some good food. And that's really important.
Thank you, Emily. Honestly, that mountain analogy is just perfect. Joe?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges, and Emily kind of alluded to it, is that for us, we presented so many facts that people have been asking for decades, and we have been able to present those to our local elected officials, and they haven't been acting as fast as we want them to, and it's so frustrating when you say people are breathing in glass, but this facility is allowed to continue. People are being exposed to 50 pounds of mercury per year when a tablespoon can contaminate an entire lake, and they're still allowed to operate. So I think one of the things we have to do is, what smaller victories can we take along the way to motivate our coalition and to really inspire more to join us? Now we have congressional candidates in District 20 talking about Norlight. This never happened before, ever. Norlight was never an issue. Now it is, because of the small victories we've been able to take, such as the PFAS law, such as getting county and city laws against Norlight, really pushing for an investigation by the New York State Attorney General, which is now occurring, setting up civil lawsuits against Norlight, class action lawsuits. So all these little things, all these little victories that we're doing inspires more people. And that's the momentum that we have to keep producing and being a constant presence in the press and building that positive press imagery. Because now when we speak with the press, they're like, yeah, they don't say it, but you can tell that they think that these Norlight people are just incredibly horrible. Not the people who work there, but the company. And it's really validating to see that. And I think also too is believing in yourself, because you have to really wake up every single day and do this mentally draining work. It's not easy. And I use the word work because I kind of enjoy it, but sometimes it's a sacrifice. And you have to make that sacrifice as the community advocate or the grassroots organizer for your community for the better. And it's important to keep taking care of yourself and to really focus on your personal goals and what you want for the entire community. Because if you're in a positive mindset, you can really energize the community and really push things forward. And things haven't been always great. I'll be honest, in my state of mind too, with this whole problem, because it's so stressful. But at the end of the day, there's a community that's counting on you, and you have to do what's right for yourself. And I did over the summertime take a break. And I said, I got to take a pause from all this. And I did. And we came back and we've done all this stuff now. And now we're waiting on the Attorney General to get back with their report. And we have a lot more in the pipeline against this facility. And I'm so excited to be giving them the middle finger once more. So it's all in you guys, and it's all in the advocate as well, keeping that sense of energy and enthusiasm.
Thank you, Joe. Mindset is everything. And yes, mental health is very important. Akia?
Yeah, I think two of the most important things, and something like every organizer learns, and it's kind of your foundation, is just recruitment and retention. And in terms of recruitment, it's like similar to what Emily said, like you can scream about how important climate change is. Like it's very obvious in many ways, and like you can talk about it all day. But when it comes to climate change, it's like really easy to terrify people, but it's very difficult to actually motivate them to like step up and take that charge. And I talked about earlier how it's really important to have that platform for people in the community, but giving them the confidence to actually become leaders and speak up for their community also takes some time. It takes like, instilling confidence, showing them that, their voice matters, and just, providing that kind of support. And that takes time. which brings you to retention, right? Because if you're going to have that leader, if you're going to have this base of like really powerful community members that are going to stand up for these issues and causes, you have to make sure that they are up to date on what's going on, that they know the progress of the bills, that they are able to fully understand these topics, not only at the policy level, but in the way that like will resonate with their neighbors. And that's also a problem that we come across really often, is just trying to break it up from just policy and like, you know, bill numbers, and actually explaining to people that like this directly affects your life and the way that, you know, your home is going to be paid, how your utility bills are going to go, how clean your air is, and, you know, whether you can have clean energy and safe water, or whether you become like one of those neighborhoods that are next to power plants and just like, you know, become Asthma Alley, which we have in Long Island City. And there's just so many nuances to it. And like all of this came to me very quickly in NYCC, particularly because NYCC is predominantly a housing kind of nonprofit. We work a lot with excluded workers and housing rights. And so the climate team, for us to build a membership base that cares specifically about climate, this is a new project for us. We have these very great like members who, you know, speak a lot about climate and they're very confident, but it is just a handful. And we need to show all of our members that, you know, this is something that is affecting your day-to-day life. Like, you know, please come out, show support on this as well. And that's difficult, right? Like making sure that these stories are relatable and that we're also, you know, taking into consideration what their lives are like. So it takes a lot of personal conversations, a lot of relationship building. I would say that's like 80% of my day is like trying to reach out to members and trying to see what's going on and how we can help. And after that, after you have like these, you know, community leaders and everything, it's still important to make sure that you keep in touch with them like continuously, that you're not just asking them to like come out to your event every now and then, but that you actually know what's going on and that they know what's going on in the work we're doing. Something particularly for NYCC is that we have a large base of monolingual Spanish speakers. So we also have to take small things like that into consideration, because if we're throwing an event and we're not going to have an interpreter, we have a bunch of members come out who just don't know what's going on, and that is completely unfair to them. So there are a lot of nuances to like retaining members, but most of it comes from understanding what they're going through and coming from a perspective of like, it's not just we need to pass this policy, but like we need to make sure that they are safe and that they are, you know, being advocated for exactly their needs, not just what we need to pass this.
Yes, awareness and inclusivity are so important. Now we'll be on our final question. What's one way that people can get involved in grassroots organizing on an issue you're working on right now? George?
Sure. So we, of course, are working very hard behind the scenes with lobbying and the like on the extended producer responsibility and zero waste front. But we were wondering, how are we going to get the public involved and more involved? So I'd like to invite everybody. Monday night, we're holding an online game called Ready, Set, Go, Zero Waste. You can find that at bit.ly/go0game, all lowercase, all one word. And join us. We're gonna try to have some fun. We have some great eco-friendly prizes for contestants, and everybody that wants to play can play. I think we can hold up to 500 people if we're so lucky to have so many people join us. And of course, this is mostly for fun, right? We need to, we need to take a little break too from all the seriousness, and do something that'll be interesting for the general public. And so I invite you all to come and join us. And we are also very lucky to have Wendy Wild from WKTU is going to be our host. And so we did the dress rehearsal last night, and I'm like really excited about it because it's, you know, it's actually something fun that we're getting to do. So I invite you all to join us on Monday. And if you would like to get further involved from that point in grassroots organizing with us on any of the issues that we deal with, which include fighting National Grid from putting any new fossil fuel pipelines in, includes other anti-fossil fuel project things that we are working on. We're trying to get Long Island Power Authority to become a municipalized public power utility. We are working to bring responsible offshore wind off of Long Island. We want it fast, big, and done right. I think that's everything. So yeah, so you can just check that bit.ly, so bit.ly/GoZeroGame will be get you involved in Monday night's event, and there'll be a bunch of actions that will spring from that. So come take an action and maybe win a prize.
Thank you, George. Yes, you guys all should sign up on Monday for the event if you're free. Akia?
Yeah, so I'll mention two things. First, if you guys haven't heard, we are trying to defend Local Law 97. It is very important. What we are trying to do for this, like one of our really big initiatives, is to have a community leader sign-on letter. So this sign-on letter will be addressed to Adams, and essentially it advocates for the full implementation of Local Law 97 and shows that there's a wide variety of support for it. So I will drop the link to that in the chat. And if you guys could please sign on to this letter, that would be really great. We're trying to reach 1,000 signatures by mid-March, and I think we're almost there. And I would also just like to thank NYPIRG, because a lot of these signatures are from NYPIRG students, so that's also really great. The second one is for Climate Can't Wait. So Climate Can't Wait is a large coalition in New York City and New York State. This coalition has more than 45 organizations signed on, and the point of it is so that we can rally together and show support for a package of 12 bills that we want this legislative session to push. And so Climate Can't Wait is going to have a really big rally on Earth Day in Albany. So we will have buses going up to Albany, and we will have a series of events, a march. We're going to have some skits, some plays. There's a lot of ideas in the works. So if you would like to attend, find more information, I'll also drop a sign up link for that in the chat soon. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Akia. And yes, guys, make sure you sign that petition and sign up. That's so exciting that you guys are going to Albany on Earth Day. That's amazing. Joe?
Yeah, so my group, Lights Out Norlight, we meet every other week, and I'll put my contact information on and when we're meeting on Zoom. And I'm also going to put in a video that we just recently created about a Norlight 101. It's 3 minutes. And if you're really involved and getting involved with the Norlight issue, because I'm a little biased, but I think it's one of the top environmental issues in the entire state, send this to your representative. When they're in the car going to their fancy donation dinners or whatever, they can watch this on their phone because it's only 3 minutes, and it's really powerful. And it shows what's going on in the Cohoes community and in this public housing development. And you're able to hear firsthand from local residents. And again, it's only 3 minutes. It's created by our wonderful other organizer, Dave Pablo. And we're also creating a documentary too about this process. We've released a first part and now we're working on a second part. But this really encapsulates what the Norlight issue is and a lot of things I've been speaking about today. You're able to see the dust on people's cars. That is very cancerous. You're able to see people complaining about the smells. I can't remember if the snow is in there, but when it snows, our snow becomes black and dirty. So if you're really inspired by the Norlight issue, I would really highly recommend you reach out to me on my email here, But if not, it's really important that environmental organizations support each other, because as Judith mentioned earlier, yes, you can't fight something individually as one person, but you cannot also fight something individually as one organization, and you need a coalition. And we were able to do that over the summertime and send the DEC a letter with over 120 organizations across the state and nation, demanding that Norlight's Title V permit be denied. And that's another campaign that we're working on, that it really gives them the right to incinerate hazardous waste. So if these are things that you're passionate about, I really encourage you to reach out to me, and really get involved in community issues that you're really passionate about, because you can do it. I'm only a senior at in Syracuse University. I'm from a small town in upstate New York. You can do anything. And when you elevate the voices of others, you become unstoppable. So thank you for having me today. And I really look forward to working with NYPIRG in future events.
Thank you so much, Joe. Yes, you could put anything you put your mind, you can do anything that you put your mind onto. Emily?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to be quick, so because I have to pick up my kid from school or she's going to be so mad at me. But we have our annual meeting coming up on Wednesday, March 30th. It's going to be from 6 to 7:30 on Zoom. And this is for anyone across the state, but especially if you live in and around Western New York, become a member of our organization. I'll put the website as well, www.cacwny.org. And then I also have this, if you check out our website, we have a few videos about hazardous waste, about the cleanup program. So if you want to get super nerdy about hazardous waste cleanup, please reach out to me. I'm always looking for fellow nerds, like the kinship I found in ANRAB, to that are like obsessed with hazardous waste cleanup programs. But yeah, like Joe said, get involved with local organizations, support organizations across the state, and really, especially if you're in Western New York, I would love to talk more. I'd love to sign on to people's letters, and we'd love to have you as a member of our movement for environmental health and justice. And I'm going to go get my kid so my night doesn't go bad. But thank you all so much. This was so lovely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining. Okay, well, that wraps up our discussion. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, attendees here on the Zoom, and those tuning in to our live stream. Now that this panel has concluded, we are opening the breakout rooms. We have some great options for you